Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of 6 Degrees of Associations. I'm your host, Lucas McCann. With us today, a very special guest, Bennie Johnson, CEO of the American Marketing Association. Welcome to the show, Bennie.
Lucas, thank you for having me. And thank you all for listening.
My pleasure. I think this is going to be a fun one. Well, I want to turn the mic over to you, Bennie, before we get into sort of current time and place and role. Take us on a little journey here on a little bit more of your background, some of the roles you've had in the past, and how you ended up in the world of
Oh my
associations.
goodness. How did I end up in the world of associations?
I know.
Completely unexpected journey and somewhat completely by chance. So I grew up really being drawn to the worlds of marketing and entrepreneurship and had served in a lot of marketing and strategy roles and capacities. And then probably, I would say probably about 15 years ago, I had the opportunity, was hired by someone who became an association mentor to come in and build a global marketing and strategy team from the ground up. So I went from being in technology driven consumer and B2B marketing to having this opportunity to come in and build a marketing and global development team for an association. And I grew up in the DC area, which is home to many of our associations, had no
Yeah.
idea. Really, I probably passed every association in my day-to-day personal life. Really did not understand what world I was entering, but I'm so happy and glad that I did.
Yeah, we're a unique bunch. And it's sort of like breaking the glass. You don't know and what's happening around you until somebody points it out. And then, you could go down in Old Town Alexandria and people say you could hit a pitching wedge and probably knock off 3 associations, the
Right,
side of them before it hits the ground, right? They're
right. It
everywhere.
was really interesting. One of an experience that I really valued early in my career, and I'm still friends with the folks who helped build it, was a startup that grew out of an IT management consulting firm, and it was about gathering project managers together in professional community with resources and training. You see where I'm going? It
Yeah.
was we were doing all of these things. Eventually, down the line, this organization gets acquired by PMI. So I was doing work that kind of tipped its hat to association even before I was involved in the space. Skip ahead a decade later, and now that concern is a part of the larger, Project Management Institute. But really speaking to that heart of associations and professional community to help drive professions and professionals forward.
Yeah. And doing my homework before, sort of before this meeting and an interview, that's one of the things I recognize. You had this background that was very diverse, and you were sort of in the wings of marketing and sort of going around the world of
Right.
associations. And you got all these elements to your background that sort of, I think, lead up to be, sort of the perfect skill set for where you are in the role today at AMA. And I was wanted to point out this piece from your LinkedIn that says, and I'm gonna read it here. It says, "You thrive in the connections between marketing, technology, art, education, and innovation." And I shared, I individually, I had made the connection with each of those in marketing, but the connection of, I just think you're really well suited. And tell us a little bit more about, how you see that
Oh
connection.
wow. It's one that I think really just lend itself to who I am as a person, as a leader, as a business professional. Um, the ideas that all these ideas touch and generate from each other. What drew me to marketing and entrepreneurship was the idea of doing something different or better, right? And that kind of expanded. It grew me to think about continuous learning. It gets you to think about how do you accelerate learning and growth? Often it's through technology. So kind of layering in these spaces. What I often loved was being able to have conversations like this with folks who are artists, who were engineers, who were problem solvers, who were troublemakers, right? Who were people who were breaking ideas and paradigms. And for me, I've
Yeah.
always kind of found a home there. No matter what organization I'm in, no matter a space in there, I tend to gravitate towards what are we doing to break a new future? What are we doing to make things more dynamic? What are we doing to help more people? What are we doing to make it better? Right. And so those kind of the energy often comes in with that curiosity. It's what great artists think about. It's what great engineers think about. It's what, architects and builders think about. And so I found that as a great metaphor, in a way in which I kind of sort those things out in my career. If you're doing business relaunch spaces, you're taking the old legacy organization, which many of our associations are, that have been around 175 years.
Yeah.
It's about that reinvention. or if you're taking on new ideas. When I worked in online education, we were doing online education before everyone had iPads. So to have that
Hmm.
conversation today is very different than to have that conversation 10 years ago, right?
Yeah,
Or
no,
15 years
absolutely.
ago, right?
The marketing landscape has changed quite dramatically, which I want to talk to you about in a minute. But just sort of continuing to pull on the thread of this entrepreneurial spirit that you have and the energy you have, and sort of
Yep.
the break the mold and the startup mentality. Oftentimes, people think of associations as maybe 10 years behind, and it's missing some of those elements. So, I mean, when you stepped into this role, was it a challenge that you knew ahead of time? Hey, this is an industry maybe that I wouldn't say bucks those traits
Right.
all the time, but it's a little more, hey, I got to rule by committee. This is how we've always done it. We don't have necessarily always the resources to make and be at the forefront of technology. Or was that the opportunity that you saw?
That's always what's streaming, right? That's always what's being played everywhere you go into it. Those
I know.
natural kind of human resistance to the change, or it being different, or the limitations of we can't do this, we can't do that. I used to joke about this years ago, but I think it's kind of self-fulfilling and true. No one hires me to do the same thing that we're doing, right? My background, my bio, what I bring to the table, what I think about, what I'm passionate about as a leader and a creator and builder. It's not about just doing the same status quo of what we've done before. So when I'm coming into roles in organizations, that's the starting point. We know that we're going to think differently, right? We're going to do things that are more dynamically. We're going to be thoughtful. We're going to be resilient. We're going to be strategy first. We're going to be design and insights first. We're going to be building a better brand and market first. Those are the areas in which I grew up, right? The entrepreneurship, the strategy, and the marketing. But I think they serve us well as contemporary leaders, and
Yeah.
I don't really look at leading an association very different than leading in a B Corp, than a nonprofit, than a for-profit or a startup. At its heart, it's still leading people in mission and vision, right? It's still kind of building those spaces in there. The skills of being a dynamic marketer or strategist, you're using them regardless of the business tax status.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and well said. And I often don't tee my guests up for any specific questions, but and I didn't this question either. But could you point to an example where some of those traits that you're talking about has really benefited maybe you and the organization? And the reason I ask is there are often times
Yep.
where when an association is selecting a new leader, there can be a tendency by the board that doesn't want to change.
Right.
You're just sort of, hey, I want to bring somebody in. It's in maybe an industry led board often, maybe not. But they want to bring somebody in who's kept the status quo. And so I want to continue
Yeah.
to point out and highlight those areas where this can be a real benefit because
it,
I'm a believer.
it can be a huge benefit. And, yes, I resemble that remark, right? And I'm biased in that sense in that. But I think when we look at what professional organizations or any companies are up against our contemporary marketplace, the days of just we've done it this way before and that will secure our future are over. So whether you as an organization and your board have received that announcement already, or it's the early days of it, the reality is it is over. Your competition in the marketplace, your complementers, your substitutes in the marketplace are all looking to build faster, better, more engaged for the future. So you kind of owe it to yourself, the organization, the mission to think in that way. And so, coming in, you don't come in and just, turn over all of the legacy and all of the history in that. That's a part of the recipe of building out your future. But we have to understand that there may be and should be more dynamic ways that we work together, considerations that we have. I've been in organizations where we didn't think of a partnership, 20 years ago because they're a competitor and you don't have that conversation. And today you realize that working together creates a better place for the industry and you're able to drive things, right? These mind shift changes that come in. You then see in organizations where, as you said, sometimes we have long tenures across our organization, which is great for
Mm-hmm.
history, but not often great for skill assessment. It's not always great for getting in additional marketplace perspectives or impacts. So what I try to do is always have a blend of those who've been there, done that, new voices that are coming in, and folks who've worked with me on other projects as well. So we get that dynamism and that energy, right? Because that's what you're going to need to kind of carry your organization forward. And that's kind of a general sense. But, for most of our associations, we're championing professions that have been around. or a
Mm-hmm.
generation or two. Now, for most of our professions, they haven't been the same, but the idea of the profession has
I
been
hope
around,
not.
right? Well, sometimes there's lacks of change. There's some professions that there's not change every moment. Marketing is not one of them. We are
No.
constantly in change. Marketing is different today as we record this in 2024 than it was in 2019, than it was in 1999, than it was in 1985, right? And there's no one
Or maybe even 2023.
exactly. And guess what? It's going to be incredibly different to the point that you won't recognize it in 2026. And so, but
Yeah.
how do we as a professional association still provide the community, the platform, the resources for both marketers as individuals, for the teams and organizations they lead, in the industry at large to kind of navigate that change? So we have to build a professional association that's agile and nimble and focused on this new professional future.
Yeah. And this may be more of an industry specific question,
Mm-hmm.
but right, all these things are changing
Yep.
as it relates to marketing. Uh, the landscape, I feel like, daily there's something new to sort of research and look at and understand. What are some of the common threads you see within that industry, though, that have not changed? I know you have a background in marketing as
Right.
well, not just leading in organizations. So, just through your experience and now in your current seat, what are the mainstream items that you just sort of stay focused on as it relates to marketing?
Customers first and foremost, like understanding your audience, understanding and anticipating their needs and the value you bring for them. The power of brand in order to encapsulate who you are, and what distinguishes you in the marketplace. And that's uniquely connected, as we said, consumers. The idea that marketing has a role in terms of leadership of organization, whether it's people, products, promotion, and service, right? That marketing has a space in there. And that, innovation has a partner in marketing. When you think about that, of how and those are things that have been true. We look at some items today that you don't think of being innovative, but they were innovative, right? There was a point in time where having a website was the edge of innovation. And then it gets
Yeah.
adopted where it's commonplace, right? And it becomes a tool in which you use. But marketing needs to understand and drive not only usage and understanding, but also drive value for your organization business. So that stays true, right? No matter if you're a 100-year-old company or a startup, understanding your customer is always important. Understanding the context of the world, right? Having that market intelligence is always important. Building a brand, whether you're a B2B product, an NGO, an idea, an individual startup, there is a brand that's associated with you, and being able to nurture, expand, and promote that is important.
Yeah. I mean, I hold it sort of near and dear to my heart as well, not only because I'm a scaling up believer.
Right.
If you've read the book, I'm sure you have, as a brand builder, right? There's 4 elements, and one of them is marketing.
Yep.
So it's just so important, I think, just in the storytelling, and brand plays into that. And it's undervalued still,
Right.
in my opinion. And I think it's still something that we need to bring to the forefront and educate more and more companies in the market on the importance of that. And, what are some of the things that you think about that AMA can bring to the table as it relates to the value conversation around brand? What kind of things are you all doing?
One of the things we're doing is, as a professional community, we're a resource for marketers as they grow throughout their profession. So not only in their personal role and skill attainment, but also what they can do to train their teams and their organizations around them. We also do a lot of work bringing together executive level marketers who are often in these conversations with their counterparts in other functional areas. So how do we elevate the role, as I like to refer to it, the art, the science, and the magic of marketing, right? So the science is often a way in which you're able to build your case across the table, the executive table. Why is this a good business case? Where are we seeing impact and value that drives into the business? The art of marketing, the creativity, the brand strategy that goes into it. And these are all the things that people see. And marketing is one of those professions. You don't necessarily see it with accounting or finance or IT, where people just step up and say, I can do this one day. Sadly, we live in a world in which sometimes people can step up and say, I can do marketing. Now, just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should, right? And we
Yeah.
know this.
Or just because you think you
Right.
can doesn't
And
mean
we
you
know
should.
this, and we see, when you see marketing go bad or marketing be inefficient, there are some tried and true techniques and skills and a real profession that's at work underneath the, hey, this is a really cool idea, right? For every cool idea that you see, understand that it's the tip of an iceberg, and there's tons of science and rigor and engineering that goes into creating these spaces. Understanding of behavioral science, understanding of technology, of visual design systems, that all go into what marketers do every day, right? They make it look really easy, but at the heart, as I said, it's art, it's science, and then it's magic, right? What gets us excited about it? How do we know when it works, right? That's the science part of it. But why is really the magic that captures people's imaginations, right? How do we learn or reinforce what stories matter? You know,
Absolutely. I also, it's making me think of, through my career, I've started to unfold this idea that marketing is probably the most complex area of an organization.
right,
And the reason I say that is if you have a sales team or sales, and this isn't a slight to anybody,
right,
if it's sales, right? If you can do sales, you can do sales. If you're an accountant, you can do the accounting and the finance, and generally you understand that, and you wear a hat and so forth. Marketing, though, is just so multifaceted. There is no real Swiss Army knife out there. If you know one, let me know. I'd like to
right,
hire them.
right,
But there's so many elements and compartments within marketing, and some people are technology marketing
right,
specialists, and some are design specialists, and some are content specialists. So to put somebody under this umbrella of, well, you're within marketing, I don't even feel like it does it justice
right.
anymore. And it's one of these areas where the expansion of titles, I think, has boomed more than anything else in the last 15,
Right,
20
right. Well,
years.
this is a way to kind of make sense of it. So I can tell you that I do know several Army knives who bring all of this together, right? Because
Okay, we'll connect
yeah,
after.
we've got a lot of incredible marketing executives who will never say that their jobs are easy, right? They're dynamic and fun and impactful, right? But they'll never say it's easy. But yes, marketing has expanded, and very much, to the science metaphor, very much like our universe. It's constantly expanding, right? So as
Mm-hmm.
if you're running marketing for any organization of any size, you're going to have to understand brand and creativity. You're going to have to understand analytics and metrics, right? The different skill set. You're going to have to understand technology stacks and platforms. And you're going to have to understand core principles of advertising and persuasion. Those are areas that tie in, not to mention team leadership and team building or operational
Yeah.
supply chains. You think about if your organization is really dynamic, you want to have marketing embedded from inception of the idea through research, implementation, deployment, execution, and then review. You want that full circle space in there. And you want to have a marketing leader who understands the business through this lens and skill set that is marketing, right? Because at its heart, it's
Yeah.
understanding your main purpose. And we say business as a default often because we think of for-profit space in there, but it could be your mission. It could be your triple bottom line approach that's in there, that's about
Yeah.
social impact, business impact, and the world, right? Those are all things that I firmly believe that the contemporary marketing education helps to create more well-rounded, more dynamic leaders to be able to solve these challenges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One, you're just pointing out all my scars in history, but
Uh-huh.
lessons, I'll say lessons that I've learned in my own business career. And one of them is always have somebody from marketing in the room for every
You,
conversation,
hey,
because
that's good.
too
That's
many
good
times
advice,
have
my
I
friend.
gone
That's good advice.
too many times have I gone 20 miles down the road and then given the keys over to marketing, and they didn't understand the history or why we got here or where we are. And it's very difficult to sort of go back and explain all of the tribal knowledge that one
Right,
gains through going through a product development phase, that if you don't have them in there, they won't be able to tell the right story,
right.
right?
Or they're little moments that just an understanding or a pivot would change your outcome or open up the aperture for something different. I remember being early on in the career, and I'll keep the company nameless, but we were working on a product, and I remember the marketing and design portion of the team not being connected to the actual product manufacturer part of it. So the supply chain were tied in there, and the product was supposed to create a sensitive product, but everything that was done was kind of anti-visually sensitive. It was cold, it was stir, it was all these things are in there, and you're looking like if anybody on this team had just been in one of the meetings before, just one, We would have been in a different location. But you see, you're down the line, millions of dollars, lots of resources, and the solution ended up being slapping a pink flower on the outside. Not the most optimum solution. Kind of it on the surface probably looked lazy, right? But that ended up being because I sell that story in jest because there were all these opportunities where marketing, creative brand leadership could have been a part of the conversation, could have been in the brief, could have been in the working space in there. And they were brought in at the very, very end. And the only thing that was left to do was kind of put this flower sticker on the outside, which, completely worked against the incredible product idea and tanked this offering from the beginning.
Yeah. There's so much content and books dedicated to, sort of the Simon Sinek start with why sort of concept is figure out why you're doing something, but then have marketing. Step 2 of the book should be then have marketing sit next to you. And once you've figured it out and then move forward.
Sometimes it's a good gut check to talk about the why, right? Because it may be really, really compelling to you. And you've created an echo chamber of an audience of one. And you share it out with the space in there, and you're like, well, there may be concerns or there may be unexplored opportunities, right? I'm always on that positive bent of like, we're probably missing something even cooler, that this is an opening point, right? And how do we bring in those resources together? It also creates a more generative environment, and it spreads the win out, right? So then we all win together because we're engaged in it. No one wants to be in a product where you're handed to it as a part of a relay. Right? This needs to be more integrated than just the handoff. And I've done my part, now you do yours, right? This needs to be, the successful integration. It's not even a back and forth. It's a part growing in there together, because we never know when those good breakthrough ideas come in, or when the cautionary tales of you don't want to put 2 and 2 together here. We've learned this from the past, or we see this around the corner, right? Marketing can provide you with that. At least the teams that I've led in space in there, where we integrate research and insights into it, marketing should be able to provide you a bit of hindsight. What have we done? What's going on? A clear vision of present sight, right? Like what's happening, this line of sight. And when you really have those things firing on all those cylinders, you can then add a bit of foresight, right? What do I see as the future based on these things that I have in there? That's incredibly valuable skills and learning to apply to any business problem that you have.
Yeah, really well said. And going back to the first part of that, I really like wrapping all of that into this win together concept too, right? Let's all celebrate at the end of this thing together. It's not one person may have come up with the concept, but somebody else may have provided a different perspective. And it's always fun to celebrate with your team when you win versus, hey, I did this individually. I've been on both sides of that, right? And from a sports perspective, we talked about old person sports here before we got on the show, but I always enjoyed the sports more where I was on a team and we won together than I individually may have taken home a medal or something like that.
No,
there's something there.
I think there's something powerful with that, and it challenges the old maxims that you used to hear all the time. If it was a victory, it was because the sales team was brilliant, and if you lost, it's because marketing was horrible. Right? We have to be able to dismantle those kind of old tropes in the business space in there.
Absolutely. Well, let me switch gears, not to go completely back in time, but let's go back to associations and before you found this world again, what would you say, looking back on some of your other career roles, you think best prepared you for where you are now at AMA?
Oh my goodness. I think it was a bit of all of them, right? You're transformed and you're equipped, and you take the things with you that you're going, good, bad, and different, right? You take that in there. Yeah. I think having the experience of being a marketer, doing global launch, doing innovation brand projects, introducing new products in the marketplace, all those skills were really important, right? That having the entrepreneurial experience gives you a sense of determination, of hard work and resilience, because you're always going to hear no, or this isn't working out, right? You're not afraid when you're creating new stuff to fail because nobody's done it before. Likewise, the experience of going into places where we had to renovate, right? Where we had to innovate and this is, and I flipped those words on purpose, right? Where we have to kind of take an old structure, hold on to what's historic or hold on to what has meaning, and then regroup everything else for what we need going forward, right? As team members change, as technology changes, There's so many cool things you can do today in marketing that we couldn't do 25 years ago. Just you kind of have an idea. Wouldn't it be great if I could, right? That if I could is happening today, and being blown away by what that will be 25 years from now, gets us excited every day at the AMA.
Yeah, as you're speaking, I'm thinking through also the word renovate, right? When you come in, you can't really tear down everything and start over, right? That's not an option, right? You're always going to be left with I'll call old walls or existing structure that you have to build around. So as much as you want to come in on a turnaround situation, if it is such, there's always a piece of it that's going to be there.
Yeah. And it's less about turnaround oftentimes. It is about reimagining, right? Reimagining for the future. And that is part of the challenge. Like, how do you take the things that have been wonderful and strong that led us to where we are, right? Mm-hmm. And how do you make sense of those for where you need to go for tomorrow? And so I think that that's powerful because there are relationships, there's history, there's earned, brand support that come with all of that. But it may, sometimes it works against you for where you're going tomorrow, right? It's really hard. Mm-hmm. I remember once being at the BBB and having, we're a 100-year-old organization. And we had a partner that had been with us had been a national, like considered major consumer brand partner for like 75 years. And I remember our team going in and the team wanting to go and celebrate with them that you've been a part of the BBB for 75 years. And they were stopped, metaphorically at the door by this brand leadership and said, you can't come in here celebrating that we've been doing something for 75 years. Our culture is all about what's new and innovative. If you come into the door and say you've been working for 75 years, people immediately will question, why are we still working with you? And kind of let that sink in, that in this organization, the ethos of creative destruction and what's new is new was so strong that even that relationship, now clearly the relationship had evolved over 75 years. The work that was being done was evolved. The work that was being done was relevant. But
probably nobody had been there the full 75
years.
It's
sending a signal that that's not where we're going to go. And if you're an organization that's on the inflection point of change, that signal can be enough to sever those partnerships and relationships. And so I think associations often have to play that balance of, we have the credibility. I often think about it like business schools, like really top business schools play up the fact that they have legacy, that they've been around for a period of time, but they also play into the fact that their legacy is about innovation. So it's not about the actual artifact or novel thing that was created 80 years ago. It's about the fact that they were leading the thought about creating something new. And that thought continues today. And I think that's kind of an instructive lesson and metaphor for us in association spaces, right? Because it's real easy to get into, we've been doing this, we're the oldest, we're the largest, we started since 1914, right? Now think about that in the context of an organization that needs to think about growing the future.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I mean, and there's plenty of associations who had been around or would have been around for 100+ years, but they've gone away. I've shared on previous show, my grandfather was an ED at a direct mail association. Well, that direct mail association doesn't exist anymore for reasons and conversations for another day. But having some legacy can bring value, but only if you're continuing to evolve.
Right. You make your legacy innovation.
That's right.
And I think that is healthy tension for the respect and engage and credibility of our associations, which have long tenure for reasons, right? But then it opens you up for what we need to survive 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, requires us to make some investments and some pivots today.
Yeah. Well, at the time of the recording, I can't say that you're a new CEO. You've been in the seat for, some time now. And for maybe our younger audience members or maybe even some of our more senior, what are some of the things that you've learned in this initial period that had the biggest impact for you getting your arms around associations?
Oh my goodness. So my running joke with my team is that if your association's 100 years old, you get to be the new guy for like 3 years. So that's just a relative state. You get to be the new guys. So no, I've been in the role for.
Okay, so you are still the new guy.
I'm going to still embrace being the new guy. You're going to have to tell me that I'm not eventually, but no, because we're approaching it with new thinking. and new space that goes into it. And so a part of what I do is exactly what you just heard me talk about, right? It's a respect and
Mm-hmm.
engagement of the rich history we have. We have an incredibly rich history, but it's also a conversation about and a challenge to what a future could be. So we know that we need to build things that are flexible for a profession that's always constantly being disrupted, right? Recently I got a chance to do one of those trips of a lifetime spaces, and I spent my birthday in Iceland, and it was incredible, and it was
Very
crazy.
cool.
Yeah, it was like we're gonna do it, and we just jumped and did it. But the metaphor for being there is the space in which you have nothing but creative destruction. It's old
Mm-hmm.
and new at the same time. You've got new land and new forms being created. You've got all the space in there. It was really kind of powerful in that sense, for what it meant in the metaphor. What it meant physically and being there was awesome, right? It meant that I was on volcanic fields looking at the northern lights. It meant that I was in the middle of, someone asked, was it cold? I was like, it's Iceland. But yes, of course, it's cold. But
It's in the name.
it's what we did, what we do, but it was an incredible experience in that space in there. So what I've learned in there is to, in this role, this is like the second time being a CEO of an association in there. I think I've learned to have more fun with it, with the role there. The
Mm-hmm.
work that we're doing is incredibly powerful and inspiring and important. It doesn't mean we can't have fun with it. And so that's really important for me in this time around the spaces. When you think about our content area, marketing it's art, science, and it's that magic. And when we talk about marketing, we see marketing, people's spirits light up and get excited about these things. Everyone can tell you the commercial they remember or a product that was introduced to them that changed their life. That's all a part of marketing. So I want to make sure as a leader of the marketing association, I'm bringing that energy, that vision, and that dynamic fun to our space. Yeah. We'll have a lot of creative destruction. Yeah. We're going to change up things that we do today versus tomorrow, but we're going to have fun.
Yeah. Well, let's ask some fun questions then. One, you brought it up. What is your favorite commercial? Do you have one?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I got lots of commercials I love. I'm probably not allowed to have a favorite one, as I got to be agnostic.
That's fair. I ask you an illegal question.
I can't really say that, but and sometimes I can tell you ones I don't like, but that's hard too.
How about give us don't give us the commercial, but just give us the types of commercials.
You know what commercials? We were talking about this a little while ago. You know what commercials make me smile the most? During big sporting events. So you watch the Super Bowl, and we all watch the Super Bowl for the commercials. I'm not saying anything that's revolutionary there. We watch the Super Bowl commercials for that. What I love, though, are the moments within the Super Bowl in which you cut over to the local ad placement. And it's the Super Bowl commercial for the local shop that's just putting it together to get the Super Bowl commercial. I absolutely love the creativity and the guts of, you got a $5 commercial in the midst of the $5 million Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Dunkin' Donuts commercial. And you've got the little commercial for the Windows company. And they're bringing it all. They're going all in. Those are things that make me love marketing in space, because everybody has an opportunity to sell their product. Whether you are Dunkin' Donuts or you're the Windows, you have this space that goes into it. I love when people are creative and can make connections between their product and brand with the human experience. That's kind of a recipe for a good commercial. And it's hard, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to do. So that's what I like. So
that's good. I love it. What about every year, something fun you look forward to?
Oh my goodness. What do I look forward to? I look forward to the kids' first day of school, because it's like parental cheesy marketing at its best, right? It's just it's wonderful. And then you look back and it's great, and you can see your kids grow over time, and it's a rite of passage and it's tradition, but it's also kind of hope in the future. I love that kind of moment of being there and making my kids stand on the stairs and take the forcibly awkward photograph that becomes, their branding of their experience.
Yeah, no, wife often I talk about this. There's times where it's not necessarily the best time to be in this generation or be alive at this time, but there's lots of reasons to be thankful for being alive at this time. And one of them is, I was able to sort of create the video and picture montage of my kids, right, as they grew up. So I have those videos that we and they will be able to go back to, which I didn't have as a kid. I don't have all
Right.
these pictures and videos of me getting on the bus as a kid, but that would have been cool to go back and look
Right.
at some of that. And so now, again, we and they will have that. So it's a
We've got
remarkable
a
time
ton
to
of
have
them.
that.
We can mix and match and share them over. We got a whole collector set,
Yeah.
which is fun, right? But you talk about what do you look forward to, and it's always we look forward to these human moments.
Mm-hmm. And it's great that we can capture them and replay them now as well. Yeah, that's amazing. What about something? I often ask this question. I like this question. What's something about Bennie that we couldn't find on your resume or through scouring the
goodness.
internet?
I don't know. What do you want to know?
Well, it's up to you. I can't know what I don't know.
What direction
unless
do
you
you
tell
go?
me.
Right. I will say this because this is fun in the space. Someone asked me about what car do you drive or car space in there, and they wanted like a car head answer. They wanted like this cool hip answer, and I told them point blank, I rocked the minivan.
Okay.
I was anti minivan. I was completely against the minivan. I just did not want the minivan. We went to get the minivan. I normally have a really good attitude and positive on everything in there. This is one day in life I can tell you I did not have a good attitude. I just not.
You were bucking
The
the
guy was trying to
minivan,
sell
huh?
me the minivan. I knew we were going to get it. I knew my wife wanted it and it was important. And I knew it made sense, but I just I had not digested that. But you talked about the Swiss Army knife before. The minivan is the Swiss Army knife. So about
It really
2 months
is.
later, I had to do something, and I reluctantly had to drive the minivan. And I fell in love with its precision handling and doors and all of the amenities. And I was like, this is nice. So I rocked the minivan, and I rock it with pride.
Is there a specific feature that stands out to you that just says every vehicle should have this? And for me, as you get a chance to think about it, it was the sliding doors. When I had young kids, we rented one, and you got the carrier and everything, and this thing opened up, and I didn't have to kind of finagle it in there. I just shoved the thing in and snapped it down.
That's magic.
And moved
That's
on.
magic. Yes, that's wonderful.
Magic.
Everything that makes your life easier in the minivan is there. Yes, you're right. The doors are great. The seats moving and folding, that's great too. Like that. I like the back lift. When I put my hand on it, these are all things that are just, magical in that. But yes, and we live in a time in which we can have that.
Absolutely, and you're officially the first person on the show that's mentioned minivan as a thing that's, hey, but I love it.
It's what we do, right? So we're going to continue to make it unexpected for you. That is.
Appreciate it. Well, hey, I have the unfortunate pleasure, I would say, of bringing us to a close. But as we do at the end of our episodes, is there somebody, Bennie, you think from your network that our audience would benefit from hearing from?
You asked me that, this top of the hour, and I thought about it, and I think my friend Lou DeJoya would be a great person. He's currently the chief operating officer of the National Association of Theaters, right? So we're getting ready for the summer. I think it would be great to have a conversation about the movie business. And he's an association fellow and pro and has been at several associations. I think he'd be a great guest for you.
He sounds fantastic. For those that are listening on a recording, it's just before summer, so it is perfect time. People are getting their vacations on, trips up from DC to New York to see a good show. So I think that sounds like a perfect guest. Thanks, Bennie, for the referral, and thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and anytime.